Hey, lovely.
Hey, it's great to be back. How are you, Jess?
I mean, it's in case someone's watching this in the far, far miss of time, it's the end of May 2021. Nothing eventful or stressful has happened in the last couple of years. So just chilling. You?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like, and everything's fine and everything's going to continue to be fine. But things are genuinely going to be fine for the next hour or so because we're going to be talking about open source issues.
Yes.
Um, so what do we mean? If we're thinking of an open source project as sort of what kind of allegory, metaphor do we want to use for an open source project? If it's a classroom, if this is sort of a learning experience, maybe the issues are like a bulletin board.
I like that. Yeah, a bullet or like a hmm. Do classrooms have suggestion boxes? No, right?
Usually no, but they'd be better if so maybe like a complaints and suggestions department at a shop or in a business. Yeah. Not often what you find in education, but oh gosh, it would be lovely if it did.
Right?
Oh, our dear and beloved friend and our boss now, I think, is what we said. Platypus is suggesting it's like an IRC network, which is
Ooh,
both an absolutely fantastic comparison and makes it more complicated, not simpler. Oh,
definitely.
they're saying issues are drama free like IRC networks.
I
I
see.
was just I was trying to stretch. I was like, oh, I can sort of see how the issues would be like a relay of communicate. No, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, today we've got today we're it's going to be all about issues in open source, and last week we covered how to get an open source app up and running locally as opposed to remotely. Today we're going to focus on getting the open source project in our hands and finding an issue that we can contribute to. And we've split that out into a series of learning outcomes as we do
Because
every
we're
week.
nerds.
Yeah.
You want to alternate them?
Yeah, sure. What
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
I promise that by the end of this, you're going to be able to understand what issues are and how they're made.
Yep. After that, on top of that, we're also gonna be able to look up issues, find them in GitHub projects.
I absolutely swear that you should be able to read and understand the status of an issue by the time we're done.
Yeah. We're also gonna be looking at issue labels and how to understand them.
Yeah. And we hope, so this one's a little bit more of a personal thing, but like we hope that by the end of this, you'll be able to reason through whether or not an issue is a good fit for your skills and interests. We hope by giving you the rest of these learning outcomes, you'll be like, okay, I know enough about this where I can apply my own good judgment. I think applying your own good judgment seems like a really weird learning outcome, but I've said it out loud, so we've committed.
Yeah, I think we can what we're aiming to do is sort of like encourage folks to be able to look at an issue and say like, is this something that I can take on? Why yes, why not? Not just that, but also to see what to sort of chip away at that, because I get this a lot with open source issues. It's something I'm hoping to learn live with all of you is getting rid of that imposter syndrome that I feel when looking at an issue and thinking, ooh, somebody much smarter than me is probably gonna already have figured that out, and there's probably already pull request in progress. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Only very slightly. And I think you're getting ahead of yourself in the way where you're like, oh gosh, I feel like I don't know enough, or I should know enough, or somebody else should do this. But the majesty and glory of being on internet TV means you've committed and there are now no options.
Exactly. I'm
How,
very
how
excited.
healthy.
I'm very excited. So, yeah, let's hop right in. You can probably already see to our right here, the Chrome, the browser with GitHub open, and what we're gonna be doing is starting to look at issues in FreeCodeCamp. As I said, we got FreeCodeCamp running last week. Now this week we're gonna be looking at some issues for that. Um, so let's take stock. We've looked at issues a couple of episodes ago. Can I call them episodes? I'm going to call them episodes.
Oh,
Uh,
don't make me say webisodes because that's just that existed for like 6 months and then it's been cringe the whole time. It's
oh,
just
I
bad.
remember webisodes, web series. um,
Oh, I think those still exist.
true.
Wait, stop. We can be old later.
Yeah, so we've got our free code camp page open here on GitHub, and we're going to start looking at issues. The A great way to contribute to open source projects is to take a look at this inbox, because it's kind of, for a maintainer, this is kind of like an inbox where folks can come in and say, hey, I think that the project would be better if it did this, or hey, I found this problem or issue, I found a bug, maybe there's a mistranslation or a typo, and they come and report it here into this as just called it a suggestion box or a suggestion and complaints box.
Yeah. So I think that the general thing we're suggesting is either oh, please make this for me, either to the maintainer or to the general contributing community, or hi, this is broken. Please fix this.
Totally. So what we can do is open this up, and this is I see here that FreeCode. I hope the size is okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just make it just a touch bigger. Um, we can see here is that FreeCodeCamp currently has 213 issues open. So these are an issue comes in statuses. It can either be open or closed. And so this is the number of issues on FreeCodeCamp's project at this moment that are open. And 213 sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Well, I love to mix my metaphors. Um, so here I often think like 200 sounds like a lot, but often think of it sort of more like an email inbox. So the first time you ever get 100 unread emails or 100 undealt with emails, that's a huge deal. You're like, oh, this is the end of the world. I will clearly die and never be heard from again. But then as you move further into the world of work, you're just like, oh, 200 is fine. This can't hurt me. I live in a place this can't touch. And in the same way, open issues versus closed issues can be like, oh, hey, this is an unread or an undealt with email in my inbox versus oh, gosh, I'm done with this. I'm going to archive it. So really, like these are the stuff in your issues inbox that aren't done, that haven't been cleared and swept into peaceful oblivion.
Yeah, thank you. That's a fantastic way to look at it, because I mean, I still haven't. I think I've only once made it to triple digit unread emails. As you can tell, I'm very small potatoes when it comes to email.
Oh, yeah. I also have great inbox hygiene and if anybody watching this is waiting for an email back from me, I'm so sorry.
Oh
Like
no.
it's where hope goes to die. It's bad in there. Just
Sorry, I
send
did.
me a carrier pigeon. I can't ignore that.
Sorry to bring that up.
No, no, I just want people to send me birds.
um, so this is FreeCodeCamp's issue list. What FreeCodeCamp has very kindly done here is sort of put up a notice saying, hey, if you have a bug or an idea of something to contribute, read the contributing guidelines. We've looked at these a couple of times, so but this is something that maintainers can put in on their own will, and it's very kind and helpful to sort of give us a heads up of what to expect when dealing with issues. Now, if we scroll down here, we can start having a look. We have currently, as I said, 213 open issues, and just to give you an idea of the scale, 15,154 closed ones. So a lot of issues come in and out of open source projects.
They're getting a lot done.
Yeah, yeah, that is a lot of a lot of work done. So we can what we see here is, as I said, in order of latest activity, I believe. Oh no, sorry, in order of when they were opened. How many issues we've got here, as well as these funky labels next to them, which sort of give us an idea of what kind of issue it is and what the status of that issue is. Whether it's been, for example, answered to by a maintainer. It also helps a maintainer be able to sort of organize their issues.
Yeah. If we're sticking with the email metaphor here, those are like those tags that either you can apply or the sender can apply, or sometimes your inbox itself magically applies them, where it's just like, oh, hey, this is spam. I mean, hopefully none of these are spam. Or, oh, hey, we think this is important. Have that little red flag if you're in Outlook. Um, but really, these are a whole host of different labels, helpfully called labels, applied to this to help us better understand what we're looking at. So, where should we start?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think for me, what I like to do when I'm looking at an open source project is to take a look at what labels are available, and
Makes
sort of
sense.
and go from there to sort of see what kinds of issues are there that I could perhaps contribute to in an area that I might be better suited for, based on my skills or my skill level or my experience contributing to open source. And to
Get a general idea of the lay of the digital land. So, like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Is it safe? Is it bad? Yeah, let's go.
exactly. And what GitHub allows you to do is not only filter by which label you'd like to, filter out the issues that only have one or a combination of labels. But what you can also do is click here, which Jess very kindly introduced me to, at the label directory. So we can see here that
Uh,
FreeCodeCamp has 40 labels. Sorry. I
I was just gonna say I'm a big fan of the label button where it's like, oh, hey, what's going on here? Someone else has tagged this out. I'm gonna let them do the hard work.
Yeah, it's really cool because maintainers can define their own labels to help, either their fellow contributors or maintainers to have a look and, yeah, organize them accordingly.
And the ones we're seeing here look super normal. These are like normal people stuff. This is like human readable. So we've got this thing that says crowd and sync, but it says, hey, these are automated pull requests. Don't worry about those. Leave them alone. But then coming down here, like first timers only, how self-explanatory. Like, hey, this is a friendly one for your first attempt at. Yeah, yeah.
Not just that, but
And
I
like
just
help
sorry.
wanted. Oh, please do this right now. Like, yeah, I get where they're going here.
Yeah, and it's I just discovered now, what's super handy is, you can also hover your mouse over them and you get a more detailed description.
No.
Unfortunately, it's kind of small, so I'll have to read it out. Um, Open for anyone doing contributions for the first time. You do not need permission to work on these.
Yep,
So,
but it says that right next to it, my good dude.
thank you, Jess.
Sorry. Um,
Oh dear. Sorry about that, folks.
no, no, gosh, I everything's fine.
So, as Jess very correctly pointed out, we also have the descriptions, more detailed descriptions of those labels next to them.
I'm sorry. There was a much more graceful way for me to say that.
No, it was perfect.
Um, let's continue with the
Yes.
bullying and the better understanding these. So I wanted to go ahead and so invalid means no, something is broken here. Like this is haunted. Leave it alone. But bike shedding.
Mm.
So folks who perhaps are just getting into tech or haven't heard this term, or my favorite place to be with a tech term, have heard this a million times before, but never bothered to look it up or ask somebody and just went like, oh yeah, bike shedding. Yeah. What's bike shedding?
Yeah. So bike shedding. I it's one of those terms that I took me a long time to finally go like, I'm afraid to ask at this point, what it is. But what it is discussions that kind of veer away from the main point of the project, or the main point or the main focus of the issue itself, or that might kind of lead down a rabbit hole that might take a lot of time or resources that aren't there.
Like those weird arguments about these tiny, minute details, which are, and like bike shedding is such an accurate term for this because it was like, hey, Ramon, let's open a cafe. Oh gosh, and we're gonna spend the next 3 days intensely focused on not what we're gonna name the cafe or what we're gonna serve or what kind of health processes but we're gonna talk about, oh, we need a bike shed out front. What color shall we paint it?
Exactly, and then spending a lot of time being like, oh, I want green, I want purple.
I
um
mean, purple, obviously,
I,
but
it is.
like, yeah, the green's gonna wear. Like, have you ever seen a green bike crack?
No.
No, see, and we're doing it right now where we're like, oh, let's bike shed about bike shedding. And be like, yeah, yeah, let's go. And it's so easy to get caught in this. It's really lovely to see that they're like, hey, we recognize that these are discussions, but these aren't the discussions we think are that are going to move the project forward. Let's go ahead and put these in a little box where folks can continue to talk, and we just leave them alone.
Yeah. And so and there exactly. So there are lots of there this is one of the very helpful labels that can tell us, okay, maybe this is something that isn't the highest priority for the maintainers of FreeCodeCamp at the moment. Um, and so they add a whole bunch of these, and these are fascinating because you can see what um what kinds of issues are they working on, and also like what what is important to them, what where can one as a contributor be helpful. So they've got, for example, for different platforms, API, which we covered, I believe, last week or the week before, is application programming layer. You know, so that clients, which we have here, clients that can then interact with the FreeCodeCamp API to work with. We've got a whole bunch of them: forum, news, search, YouTube. So these are issues about FreeCodeCamp's YouTube channel. Then come things like scope. And this one I found quite interesting because then we can sort of see, like, we can take a look at these, and then I can think, like, for example, we have scope A11Y.
Oh, and come on, like I do you want to do it or I want to do it? What this means?
Um, I've been I'll let you do it, Jess. Since I
Oh, good,
since I
because
always
this means
start.
I could do the softball part and then I can throw the hard part back to you. So this means accessibility. And it says here threads for addressing accessibility issues. These are going to be the kinds of issues that make it easier for folks with different types of needs to use the free code camp curriculum and site. So this might be folks who aren't able or aren't using mice to navigate, who are keyboard only. Or perhaps this is someone who's using a screen reader. Oh no, Platypus has cheated. I was going to give you the hard question. And I was going to say, why are we calling accessibility A11Y? And our most beloved chat person has chimed in to say that it starts with an A and ends with a Y. And then there's 11 letters, which, at least to me, is not the most cognitively accessible concept where it's like, oh, hey, here's a discipline of accessibility. Let's give it a slightly confusing sort of shorthand name. But we've done this and I respect it.
I am
All
kicking
right.
myself because I recently learned that Spanish has a similar thing for accessibility. For
No, what is
access,
it?
well, right. The Spanish word for accessibility is accesibilidad, but they have
Which
a
I totally knew.
with an A, number, and a D at the end. Did not know
Oh,
this was a
cool.
thing in Spanish as well, which is super cool. I couldn't tell you what the number of letters is because I am live and a little bit nervous. So
That's charming where you're like, A, more than 70.
yes, yes, totally.
And then we've got something really similar down there with localization.
Indeed, we've got another one that I enjoy a lot. Into speaking of other languages, I18N, which is short for internationalization, and that one also has is one of these terms that has the 18 is the number of letters between the I and the N in internationalization, and this has to do with doing things. It's kind of, in my opinion, I could please feel free to correct me. Um, Kind of in line with accessibility, making an app accessible to folks who speak different languages.
Yeah. Or in different regions as well. It's almost always, it is quite often around languages, but sometimes it's got things to do with like, oh, hey, how do we, and this is always the biggest problem, how do we deal with time zones around this? Or how do we deal with access for folks on different types of systems? But usually when you see localization, internationalization, it's gonna mostly be languages stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Now that you mention it, you make me think, like, for example, this has to do with things like date formatting, which in different English speaking places will have different formats.
We can pick on America. We could just go ahead and do this. So
I want it to be neutral.
everybody else uses one format, and I'm from the States. Wait, actually, where's my? Hey, I've got my passport right here, so I'm allowed to be mean to the States. We gotta stop. We gotta stop with the date format. Everybody else does day and then month and then year, and America, like, oh gosh, it's literally in the song. God bless us. Does like month and day and year, which is fine for the later parts of the month, but the first of the month through the 12th of the month, that just invites a lot of confusion.
Funny you should mention it for a different reason. I also have my passport on my desk today, but my Chilean one.
But like we're obviously both deeply involved in some kind of heist, and we're ready to flee, and we're just doing a terrible job with cover. Like, you have your passport? Yeah, yeah. Okay, good.
And announcing
Front
it
out front.
live. um, sorry, I get very distracted by this sort of thing. So we've got we've got issues to do with back end. We've got issues to do with front end. We've got issues to do with scripts. We covered scripts briefly last week when we were setting up FreeCodeCamp to run on my computer. Um, Scripts it's just a chunk of code that has a very specific goal of doing things like setting something up or displaying something to you as a one run thing.
Yeah.
We've got scope of UI if you're doing lots of UI being user interface. So this has a lot to do with the front end of the app of FreeCodeCamp, for example. So these could be issues related to how something looks or how something is displayed or what happens when different animations take place. What else have we got? We've also got status labels.
I
So we
think these are super important. And I think that we should go ahead and say it's possible to have multiple labels. So you could say, hey, this is an issue around localization, and we're discussing it. And we think it might be a good one for a first time user. So you could have all of these at the same time. Nothing stops us. I mean, we're not moderators, so everything stops us. But on your own projects, you can effectively do what you want. You could do a better job or a worse job and communicate better or worse. But yeah.
totally. So that's page one. Let's have a look at what other kinds of we've got here. Waiting for review. Waiting.
That's what I was looking for. I really wanted to talk triage.
Yeah.
Like when you're helping out, when you're contributing to an open source project, oftentimes like you're very excited. Hey, I made a thing. I'm going to send you the thing. Or I've raised an issue. Please accept my complaint or suggestion. And it doesn't happen right away. There's no instantaneous magic a lot of the time. Humans often look at these. And like triage in a medical sense is when you show up at the emergency room or you show up at the nurse's office and they say, okay, hey, we're not going to send you right back. We're going to take a look at who we need to see first, what's the most important, and we're going to make sure that none of you can just go home with an aspirin. And in open source projects, it's the same thing. We're saying, hey, we've got all these issues coming in. Let's wait and see how we're going to label them and what we're going to accept and what we're just going to go ahead and like put in the, because like I see a black label status 2 down
Oh
that
yeah.
suggests that some of these issues just go in the bin.
Absolutely. This is the status won't fix, which, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty common in open source projects. And I feel like I feel like I have found myself quite intimidated by this label oftentimes because it's just sort of you've raised an issue that looks bad. I will not fix it. Goodbye. But this is kind of a negative, I would say an unwarranted negative reputation that they carry because sometimes there are issues that cannot be fixed. It's not
Yeah.
just won't, but can't.
Like thanks, no thanks doesn't really fit on a label very well. This is like the thank you, no thank you label.
Totally. There's another one that here that I found quite interesting that's worth pointing out, and that is this waiting for update one to be applied to PR or pull request if a maintainer or reviewer has left feedback and a follow up is needed from OP. And I just wanted to dive a little bit into OP because I think that that carries a little bit of a significance when it comes to working with issues as well. Because are you familiar with the term?
So I am a very old lady who has been on the internet for a long time, and I think that the sort of original poster concept has been around. I'm not sure if it still exists in like the ephemeral and beautiful shimmering world of modern social media or communication. But like older forums and older message boards and older like email lists. Oh dear. Back when the world was new, I saw this quite often. So it does mean original poster, and it's just like, hey, person who first threw us this issue, uh, you've got some responsibility. You've got like sort of the concept of authorship around this. Come here and answer this.
Totally. It can be things like asking for clarification or maybe sort of a follow up question to say, if somebody says something like, "Oh, this broke in Firefox," maybe there's some logs from Firefox that could be put in there. Um, yeah, I think I do see OP still in things like Twitter, not as often.
Isn't it?
Um, or in the context of video games, it's also overpowered.
Quite. I say quite like I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like if they we don't have it in like Animal Crossing, so I don't know.
Yeah, true. um,
It, we've made a bunch of promises about stuff we were going to show off. I think we've shown like, hey, here's what issues are. We think that they're a little bit like emails where they're opened or closed and you've read them or you've not, and they've been sorted or if they've not, but also a little bit like suggestions or complaints. I think we've covered, I hope we've covered reasonably well what these labels do and how to find them and navigate them and begin to understand them. Where, yeah, shall we, like, which of these labels should we dive into to look at a specific issue to understand it better?
I well, if I so this is my first time contributing to Free Code Camp, so I would say I think the first timers only label is definitely a good one to start with.
There's only one open issue. Let's go before somebody else gets it. Like, I like, do we like get a ticket and then call dibs?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes the in order for folks not to sort of like be working on the same thing at the same time, I would say the most polite thing to do is to jump in and say like, hey, I think this is something that I can work on. Um, you know, if it's fine, I'm gonna go ahead. Sort of, what is it? Claim the issue, and say
Yeah.
like, hey, I'll handle this. And oftentimes, what you can do on GitHub is also assign an issue to somebody.
Oh,
So let's have a look. It doesn't seem to have an assignee, who is the person to whom the issue is assigned. So
but
let's
it
have a
does. If we look at these little logos next to it, so whoop, we've got challenge implies using anti-pattern, which may have unexpected results in real situations. So
ooh.
this means one of the one of the free code camp challenges. So one of the lessons they give you suggests one of it leads you to perhaps using an anti-pattern. And an anti-pattern is a style of approaching something that is not like it's the opposite of a best practice. Where you're like, hey, I've done this by doing X, Y, and Z, but it turns out that doing X, Y, and Z is often very bad. So we're going to discourage people from doing this because in a lot of situations, doing X, Y, and Z is unlucky or
Yep.
deeply cursed.
Yes, which in the
Um,
sorry.
no, please.
I was just gonna add, like I think especially in the context of a learning platform like Free Code Camp carries quite a significance because it's a place for folks to learn what is commonly held to be the best practices.
So, oh no, this challenge accidentally teaches us to do something which is a bad idea in the real world. And then I see that there's two polka dots arrows, which means that there's two pull requests out. So two people have sent in bits of code, and it looks like seven people have had something to say about this pull request.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's a tagged labeled first timer only.
Yeah.
The scope is curriculum. So like we said, there's more than one involved, and it's a feature request. Yeah, you want to see what's going on in here?
Yeah, maybe we can claim it and make it our first contribution.
I mean, like there's some pull requests out. It looks like we might have to lovingly fight someone.
So we can see here the write up from the original poster. Uh, so this is the page in lines 242 of 246 of the file. And I'll click set states counter 0. This implies that you can increment the counter as follows. This method can result
Yeah,
in sorry.
yeah. So this is saying, hey, the way this code is written leads me or leads a learner to think that I can increment this. So I could just plus one and make the counter go over and over and over. But can you scroll back up to the
Yes, of
tweensy
course.
bit? That's a very technical term, tweensy. But this same course has already taught us by now in the curriculum that this method, so saying, hey, increment this counter like this, can break stuff. Since React will often batch status updates for performance reasons. So because React will often take status updates and throw them in sort of bundles, so collect a bunch and then send them up to be processed. This isn't a great idea, and this person, the OP, has said, my understanding of React is that this is the way to do it and say, hey, this dot set state, previous state to counter previous state, counter one. So it's still incrementing the counter, but it's doing it in a way that's much more sensitive to React being a little bit weird sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So we see an expect. So oftentimes these issues will have a suggested structure for things like what is affected, the expected behavior, and also a breakdown of what the platform what the computer's like that the user reporting this is on. So we can see here it's a laptop running Ubuntu on the Opera browser version 76.
And this isn't as important for this specific one because they're saying, hey, I think the way we're teaching this, I think the way we're asking you to do this is weird. But this is just good practice generally, because lots of times you'll get an issue that says, "Oh, hey, it doesn't work." You go like, "What doesn't work? What were you doing? What kind of device are you running? What kind of?" And instead of going back and asking all these questions, including them even here where we probably don't need it, is yeah, just super polite.
Totally. So we can see here this hold on. This issue was opened 6 days ago. Yes, 6 days ago. So it's quite recent. We can see here it got some labels. And now we can see a follow-up by a contributor. This user has previously committed to the FreeCodeCamp repository. Thank you for taking the time to open this. It appears this lesson was missed in the PR that closed the related issue. That's the linked that was one of the
Ah.
linked pull requests. As such, I'm gonna
Oh yeah, multiple people have said, "Hey, look, we don't like this."
yeah, exactly. As such, I'm gonna open this to first timers with the expected change being outlined as in the original post. An issue with the help an issue with the help wanted or first timers only label is open for contribution. The first comprehensive PR or pull request, it's quite commonly abbreviated to PR, will be reviewed and merged. We typically do not assign issues to anyone other than longtime contributors. And if you would
And
like to,
that's exactly what we were looking for when I was asking, like, how do we call dibs? And it looks like the way we call dibs is um, do it and do it right and do it first.
yes, exactly.
But I
Uh,
think if we scroll down a bit, we've got some folks saying, oh, hey, can I do it?
yeah, we can see here 4 days ago. I would like to work on this issue if nobody else is already working on it currently. Just for your kind information, thanks. So that's like
Oh,
very, very kind and polite way to tell us that maybe we shouldn't rush too
yeah,
quick.
you'd be like, oh, hey, I'm working on this. I'm like, how absolutely lovely to be like, hey, just in case you were working on this, I wanted to say hey, and like, I'm interested in this too. Like, how, yeah, baroquely polite.
Absolutely. And it's great.
And they followed that up. So that was 4 days ago. They were like, I want to work on this. And immediately follow with like, oh, hey, here's the pull request that fixes this.
Yeah, and they've very politely informed the person who signed this. I've opened up the pull request. Could you please check? And here we can see a discussion that follows up with that.
Oh, no.
There's already a pull request for this, which is already a request of changes. Let's give them a chance to change what is needed first. If this does not happen within a reasonable time frame, we can use your pull request instead. This is just
Like so responsible. Like this is a, and even though folks like this person's first contribution or would be the first contribution to this code, but they must be very excited.
yeah.
But they're just like, okay, somebody else was in line. We'll wait and see. Everything's fine.
Yeah, this is almost, I would say, a template for really wholesome discussion. Um, you
It's
know,
going to make it so hard for us when we go back into the real internet. Well, the wilder, less loving internet. Because somebody else is coming in and saying, oh, I'd love to do this if no one's doing it. So it's just like lovely, polite person after lovely, polite person. I
totally.
can never go on Twitter again. Like this has ruined me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Um, but it would appear that this issue is currently being worked on. So there's an open pull request that's being sorry, there's a pull request that's working on this. There's also an open pull request that's working on this. So I think this issue is currently covered. They might be hotly not contested. What's the word? They
Sought after.
sought after. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, like these first timer ones, and if we scroll all the way back up, I'm really excited about this because the issue that was originally raised was here's what's wrong, here's how I think you fix it. And for a first timer, it's hey, go to this section right here. That's not working, and here's what it should say instead. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And what's really kind here is that they've explicitly stated like this is going to be fantastic for first timers. And they very clearly outline, hey, the first PR or pull request that works for this. Sorry, just catching up with the chat. Just yeah, English is hard. Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, finding a pull request, kind of a first come first served kind of thing. But this discussion is just so important to say like, hey, if nobody else is, happy to hop on it, open a pull request. Actually, out of curiosity, I think we have a little bit of time. We can
You're gonna
actually,
see what they did.
yeah, not just see what they
Yeah.
did, but see what happened because there's a conversation with um seven comments here.
I
Uh,
bet it's people being real polite.
Well, we've got, oh, look, you can open it on Git. That's cool. Right. If from I think it was last week or the week before we saw um you know uh, is that Gitpod allows us to open the code running on the internet, which is pretty cool. um we can go ahead with this pull request as now the other one is closed. So it looks like we're almost
Oh yeah, they're gonna get it. Yes.
yeah. So LGTM looks good to me. Um, yeah,
I
it
did
looks.
not expect to be this emotionally invested in a stranger's first pull request, but I'm right there. So like, oh, the other person who was going to be doing it, they didn't respond, so it's yours now.
Yeah, it's a journey. I've committed the changes that were requested. I love this. This looks good to me. I'm happy with
Oh,
this.
can you change this little thing? Yeah, I'm gonna change it. Yeah, this looks good. Oh, like this is definitely gonna end with like pictures of puppies or something. This is just well, yeah, so we're waiting for this to be unblocked.
Yeah, it looks like they
Oh,
need.
they need one more review.
Yeah,
Oh no.
sadly we
Oh.
can't be the ones to do it.
No, no, we can't be trusted. We would just be like, let's make everyone happy. Let's just push go on everything. Like, please never let Ramon or myself be in charge of anything. We shouldn't even be on the stream.
It's
So unfortunately, we're going to be leaving you all with a cliffhanger. We're like, oh, look at this lovely suburban daredevil who's doing their first pull request, who asked politely, who was so lovely, and everything's fine, and they just have to wait patiently, which is most of the name of the game in open source, isn't it? Like waiting politely.
totally, totally. I think it's a and what I know I know I keep coming back to how wholesome this is, but just understanding that maintainers have take time out of their day to be able to look at these issues and triage them and look at code contributions and say something like um so let's just say something like thank you for taking the time, but also appreciating the fact that these folks take the time to be able to take a look at these issues and see what works for them. So
It's sort of recognizing that each of these, either very, very sensible or very gently silly usernames, are just people.
yeah,
Where it's like, oh gosh, you've done some work. Can I have a little bit of a change? Oh wow, thank you so much for a review. Like, oh, it's just people nicely talking about code.
which I don't want to spoil too much, but we're gonna be having an episode. I'm gonna call it a. Oh, I really want to call it a webisode, so I'm gonna call it a webisode. um, in a few weeks, where we'll be seeing what it's like to have this from the perspective of a maintainer.
Yeah, so we're going to be having some folks from Distribute Aid, which is a really, really exciting registered charity that does technical logistics work around getting aid, like physical aid from A to B. So literally, if you're a charity or a church or a special interest group or just a bunch of concerned citizens in the neighborhood, and you get together some food or some blankets or some supplies, and then you want to get them to somebody who's affected by a disaster, Distribute Aid does the logistics, the routing, the technology, and the processes to move the stuff from people who have it to the people who need it, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
And they're going to be coming and talking to us about the open source projects that they run that really underpin all of this, yeah, action that gets people what they need.
I don't want to overhype it too much, but they're going to be onboarding us so that we can make some contributions there as well, which is super exciting.
Which means I'm going to break something. And the maintainer review process means that no one in need of aid is going to be like put out or put in trouble by my very, very poor JavaScript skills.
It's gonna be
Love how you're
wonderful.
like, yeah, you're terrible. Yeah.
No, no, it was more of a come on.
But like both of these things can be true. Fabulous.
Yeah.
So we promised to sort of take a look at issues and how they work and talk through them. You feel good about this?
Oh yeah, I feel a lot more confident now, especially seeing what it is like to what the process is like, what sort of a real use case of what dealing with issues is, finding one, looking at labels, understanding these labels.
Getting into the complaints basket and seeing how it works.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we might be good for the day then. I think you are obviously going to go do relaxing things. And everybody watching us now, I mean, the European folks, obviously, this is the last thing you're doing for the day. And you're going to go, oh gosh, I was going to say, oh, do these exciting things, but we're all still mostly staying inside. I think you're all going to enjoy the lingering sunshine from your windows and be responsible. Whereas folks in perhaps North America enjoy starting your workday.
Yeah,
We're all done.
we'll be back next week where we're going to have an issue for you and start solving it.
Yeah, actual doing some work.
Yes. Expect more broken Docker stuff.
Goodbye, all of my lovely internet friends and my most beloved Ramon.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Jess. Take care, everybody.
Bye.